I'm the Bunny Man.
And I'm Crazy Susie.
And we are in the Eyes of Terror.
And we're moving along, and now we're on the series of Summer is in for a Bloodbath.
Yes, we are doing Fraternity Massacre at Hell Island 2007.
This is the number one slot in this lineup. It is a comedy horror, and it's 1 hour and 20 minutes long.
And I will just say, this is an LGBTQI movie. So, it's classified underneath an LGBT movie.
Okay.
So, for people who celebrate Pride,
this would be a good option.
Mm-hmm.
And it is given a 4.6 out of 10 in the IMDb score, which is pretty high.
And
we viewed this film on Amazon Prime.
Mm-hmm.
So if you're a Prime member, check this one out. If not, where are you? Where have you been? Why do you not have Amazon Prime? You're missing out.
Really, Amazon Prime. Actually, I was talking to a girl I used to work with, and she has Prime, but she didn't realize she had the movie option. Like when we first got Prime, we didn't realize you have a movie option.
And now, if you're an Amazon Prime member, you get a discount when you go to Whole Foods. So, download the app and take advantage of that.
Well,
where have you been?
But the Prime membership, if you're really into really bad horror movies, there is a slew of horror, just movies on the Prime membership. So,
you can also take advantage by joining Screambox and
Shudder, which are two other options that we have. We also have Tubby TV, which is a free app.
It's free, yeah.
And then what else? Netflix. But Netflix has been, for the past couple of years, has been really weird with horror.
Yeah, Netflix has kind of gone down as far as the horror genre has been concerned. But
and YouTube has some horror. You have to find them when we do find them. And we are sponsored by none of these.
Yeah, we just give out that information freely.
Yeah.
The director of this film is Mark Jones. He's also the writer. The cast are Jerry Berglund. He plays Clark. Helen Walk Bowman plays Dr. Calloway.
Is it I thought it was Calloway.
Okay, Calloway. Jeff Capps plays Johnny Brooklyn.
And Nita Cheney plays Secretary, the hardest of all the roles. John Devon plays Vance. Jim Eckner plays Dean Jackson Jones. Sarah Edwell plays Ghost Girl. Taylor Farrell plays Jack. And many, many more at IMBD.com. The estimated budget was $15,000, and the storyline is see IMBD. So go check it out yourself because we're tired of telling you.
Why do you have to be that way? No, the estimated budget was $45,000.
Oh, it looks like he said 15. Because
that's a 4.
It doesn't, but it's so close together. Learn how to kern, woman.
That's a 4.
It doesn't.
That's a 45,000.
It should be 15,000.
It's a 4. Okay, the storyline is Jack Jones, a pledge in Zeta Alpha Rho fraternity, must battle homophobia and a killer clown during his fraternity's Hell Night.
Okay. Mm-hmm. I'm just going to say this. I didn't really feel like there was a lot of homophobia in this movie. But I could be wrong.
I really didn't get that either. But
okay, so what are we drinking?
I am having a big tall glass of refreshing ice water.
Ooh, public utility drink. I am drinking from Yeehaw, or you want to say it because you're more country than I am.
Yeehaw!
Brewing Company out of Johnson City, Tennessee, which is about an hour away from us.
Yeah, it's not very far.
I am drinking their summertime Goose Sour Wheat Ale.
Goose sour wheat.
Goose Sour Wheat.
Sour wheat.
This
You don't have the accent to say
no,
sour
no,
wheat.
No, I do not. I come from the Midwest. I can tell you. Do you like casserole?
Casserole?
So anyway,
Does your mama make a good casserole?
everybody makes a casserole and stuff. When I grew up, there's a casserole for everything. It's breakfast. You want a casserole? Lunch, casserole. Dinner, casserole.
No, at dinner you make 2 casseroles.
Yeah.
2. Then you have a roll with the casserole.
Yep. Then you have the Thanksgiving casserole, and then the 4th of July casserole, and
Thanksgiving, you make a turkey with the casserole, and then you also have rolls with it.
and
Then
then
you know it's real
and then the
fancy.
day after you make turkey casserole.
That's right. With gravy.
Yeah, but it has to be in the casserole. You. So, all right.
That's the best part, the gravy.
So this one is this beer is different.
It reminds me of white wine.
Mm-hmm.
It's very winey. Wine-esque.
And it looks like a wine.
Mm-hmm.
It has sort of like even that sort of aftertaste of a white wine.
Yep. It's very light.
Mm-hmm. It's a very, and the coloring is very light. It's it looks everything about it. I'm pretty sure that they just canned white wine at this point.
It's what it reminded me of, white wine.
So, is it worth getting? For a hot summer day.
If you like light, very light, refreshing beer, yeah.
And I always say, if you can find it in your area, support the local microbreweries. So, shall we begin? This is also a double feature. You could be used for celebrating Pride Month. It could also be used to celebrate 4th of July. So we have chosen two special occasions, I guess, for this movie.
This is a summer film.
Yes, but you can watch it during Pride Month or 4th of July.
Mm-hmm. So the movie begins. La 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 la. My tongue is not wanting to function properly. The movie begins July 4th, 1984, River Park Island, with the performance of a group that is doing a patriotic skit.
To a group of other people who could care less what they're doing.
They may as well have been performing at an elderly folk home.
Actually, I think the elderly folk would actually enjoy it more than the people there.
Possibly. After the show, an older lady asked them if her grandchildren could be their understudies and perform with them. She said, "Please, could you teach them about the theater?" They were very rude to her. She is very displeased with their response and decides to curse them the way her gypsy grandmother had taught her.
So we have to bring in the gypsy now.
Yes. We are in no way trying to dishonor gypsies.
No.
We do not want any curses. They were poisoned. She cursed them to the island until they could get 4 young people to take their place.
So let's just talk about sort of like, so they were performing to a group of people that looked like the buffet was running out and getting cold.
Yeah, they wanted to have their teddy bear and their blankie and go night-night.
Yeah, I mean, that's the room that they were performing to. So this old lady was like, I want my kids to perform to like 5 people that just are like there to eat the half-cold French fries.
She was the only one that clapped to their performance. I mean, these people were performing in like
Uncle Sam
costumes that were like plastic, singing Yankee Doodle and all this other crap. And she stood up and applauded them and was all, "Oh, will you please show my grandchildren how to perform this way?" and blah, blah, blah. And they insulted her.
Yeah.
Basically,
they were
stuck
acting,
their noses up at her.
well, they were acting like they were Broadway stars.
Yeah.
I mean, it was like, I would have been like, actually, look around and tell me who's all here. Because fat guy number 1
Just pooped his pants.
he has a lobster bib on, and we don't serve lobster.
And his pants smells better than your performance.
Yes. So, yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Oh, yeah, and the renditions of these songs were horrible.
I know what the problem is.
What? You're not drunk enough?
I don't have my glasses.
They're right next beside you. Oh.
So she curses them to the island until they can get 4 young people to take their place. The next scene, a worker in a mental hospital walking through several rooms with cake in hand. That cake has a butcher knife sticking out of it. He ends up stopping in a room with a patient who is not supposed to have sharp objects next to him. His name is Johnny.
Johnny Brooklyn.
Johnny Brooklyn. He sits the cake with the knife sticking out of it next to Johnny, and he proceeds to make out with 2 other workers in the room. How strange for workers to make out in the room with a patient right next to them.
So yeah, you've worked.
I have done caregiver work, yes.
And it's not insane asylums anymore. What are they called?
Well, they don't put individuals who are mentally handicapped in insane asylums anymore.
No, but they're not. I mean, in general, they've gotten rid of asylum or sanitarium.
No, they haven't.
I thought they have.
No. But they do not put individuals who are physically handicapped in them.
Well,
they have group homes for those people.
But from like his record that they did shows, like you can't have sharp objects and stuff like that. And I think it was more like, all I know is the older terms, like criminally insane. You know, like he was prone to sharp objects. Mm-hmm. Like he liked sharp objects in people, type thing.
But people that are mentally disabled, people that have like psychosis and people like that, they do still institutionalize them. Mm-hmm. But people that are physically handicapped, or like people that have Down syndrome and stuff like that, that their families can't care for them, they put them in group home situations.
But I mean,
they don't put them in institutions.
But I'm saying there are certain for all. There's always been, like, you know, like I said, I've studied more of the old sane asylums from like the 50s, you know, from like the early 1900s up to
and in those
the
situations,
70s.
They mixed everybody together. People that had Down syndrome, which is more of like I mean, it's because of their chromosomes, so they can have mental and physical deficiencies. Yeah,
but what I'm saying, there are
they
certain...
They mixed everybody together.
But there are certain set of not laws, but regulations that each company sort of...
No, there are laws.
But I'm saying up to that point, there were certain... You know, like you couldn't have knives. Like I was listening to this series of stories from somebody who used to work in insane asylums back in the 70s, and saying
there are laws, and each and every patient has an individual support plan that states this person in this situation, this is what you do, in this situation, that's what you do. And because this person has these limitations, they can't be put in this situation or that situation.
But what I'm saying is, like, what I was listening to with this guy, he was like a cook, but he had to show other people how, like, the more functional
Right.
to cook, but part of the regulations that he wasn't allowed to have knives out on. He had to cut everything pre
Right.
people coming in, and then they had like a knife drawer that was locked.
Right. Right.
And I assume that is across the board
Yes.
regulation.
Yeah. And in a lot of those institutions, every employee is trained to know how to deal with each and every patient. They're cross-trained. Because there would possibly be a situation where that employee would come in contact with that patient.
So what I was trying to get at, there would be no way that a person would walk in with a knife and a cake,
No.
and then proceed to make out with two other.
No.
I mean, isn't that almost like an imprison? Like you could get imprisoned by that. I mean,
Yeah, that person would be put on an endangerment list, and they would never, ever be allowed to work in that setting again.
yeah.
When you do that type of work, they do a thorough background check and vetting check to where they check all of that. And if anything, any kind of red flag pops up, they will not hire you.
Yeah. So
that would be the situation, you know.
So I mean,
If you are charged with any kind of abuse or anything, it would be put on your permanent record.
I mean, the only reason why I bring that up is because as much as we love bad horror movies, there's just certain things that I really hate, and this is one of them. Mm-hmm. You know, where they
it
obviously
would be one thing, you know, if the kitchen door was left ajar, because in a lot of institutions like this, the kitchens and stuff like that are kept locked. Mm-hmm. And maybe if there was a malfunction in the door and it just didn't latch, and that door had been accidentally left ajar, the person didn't intend for it to be left ajar, or they forgot to pull it to or something.
Well,
In situations where it would make sense,
yeah,
that patient had gotten access,
yeah,
but the way they made the patient have access, like you said, doesn't make logical sense.
and it's sort of like in my line of work is like if somebody would leave some keys in our vehicles or the fobs or whatever, you know, and they could turn on the engine and drive off the lot and then cause a car wreck. I feel like it's just sort of the same neglect.
Yeah, it doesn't really make logical sense that it would occur that way. Mm-hmm. It's just so absurdly neglectful that it just does not make logical sense that it would happen in that manner.
And the whole like making out scene, there's certain rules and regulations. I mean, there's always like sexual harassment laws and stuff, and for no matter what business you were in. Mm-hmm. But isn't that really frowned upon? Like having like the nursing staff or even the security staff or whatever, being in like one location, and then on top of it being in that one location with the patient.
Yeah. That would be abuse.
Yeah, so
The only thing that would be worse than that is if they were actually doing that to the patient.
And like I said, the only reason why I bring this up is because you've worked in that field. And I'm not trying to drag this down and not make this fun, but this is one of the few things that I hate with asylum movies. Mm-hmm. Unless it's some historical, I mean, up till what would you say? Since, like I said, you want to say up to about late 80s, early 90s.
Yeah, it was probably the late 80s, early 90s where our government started shutting down a lot of these asylums, and they changed the laws, and a lot of these patients became what we call class members, and they really started getting protection under the law.
Well, wasn't that because it was like Geraldo Rivera, his whole, but I'm just saying, you know, like
he went into these places and filmed.
Didn't he went into one and it was like the worst one.
He brought a lot of it to light, to where, you know, things could not be avoided, and started showing that these patients were sitting in their own filth, and there weren't enough nurses per patient, there weren't enough caregivers per patient, they weren't being properly cared for. Some of them were sitting in their own filth and were nude. They weren't, their human rights were being violated.
I mean, it was
nobody was doing anything about
I mean,
it because these individuals were nonverbal.
And I mean,
nobody cared.
That's a hugely disturbing documentary. But if you want to watch it, it's on YouTube. But like I said, I hate when movies, because I think it still treats the misnomer.
And nobody knew what was going on because these individuals' families left them there to be cared for and didn't come back and visit them.
Well, what I'm saying is, like, with these movies, I think they push, I guess that's one thing you could say triggers me, is that they still push that these places are this way through, movies and stuff like that. And
not to say that neglectful things can't happen. They can, but some of the things that happen in this film are to the extreme.
Yeah. So let's get back to the fun, because this movie's sort of fun. So that was just, I guess, something that triggered me, and I just want to clear that up.
So how strange for workers to make out with a patient in the room. They go about their makeout session. Johnny notices this big knife next to him. Well, he sees the three workers going at it, and he reaches over for the knife.
Okay, have you ever noticed, no matter what movie you're in, there's always one style of cake knife, and that is the Jason murder knife.
The butcher knife.
Yeah.
Don't you know you can't cut birthday cake without a butcher knife?
I know, right?
Just so you guys know, every birthday, when we cut birthday cake, we use a butcher knife.
We do it because we joke about it.
But we're horror fanatics, so, we have to do things the right way.
We also...
Our family members think that we have problems, and they're like, well, don't you cut birthday cake with a butter knife? And we're like, no. What's wrong with you people?
We also stick it up in the in the dishwasher, and we make sure that the clown trips over himself. And that's another movie.
Yeah. We also say, certain phrases when we go to cut it too, but that's another movie. But anyway, back to the film. So they continue with their makeout session. Well, he sees the three workers going at it, and he reaches over for the knife. He grabs the knife, but all we see is him grab the knife. And next is him chasing one of the girls into the hall, and he stabs her until she is no longer moving. The introduction of the film begins.
Isn't it like really generic techno? Yeah.
I wasn't fond of it, but I don't really care for techno. One of the brothers of the frat who is sleeping with one of the pledges, he tells him he needs to go home, so his roommate does not suspect anything. And he had better be on time for Hell Night. When the pledge leaves, he pulls out a big knife from under his pillow and starts talking to him like he is Gollum.
Yeah, okay, so not only is this his boyfriend obsessed with Star Wars, but any sort of pop culture reference up to that point. And when this movie was made...
So he starts talking to the knife like he's a Gollum and calling it his precious.
Yeah, it was pretty cringeworthy.
And he's caressing it. He was saying he would protect you. I will protect you, my precious. The president, Tommy, and Sarah are waking up, and she is saying she was going to make him a wonderful dinner.
I thought it was lunch or breakfast or...
But he says he can't because it is Hell Week and the frat brothers depend on him. Andy is upset because his
roommate... No, and then she has this whole weird dialogue as he's like showering about how she's going to end the fraternity and because reasons that they're taking... And it's like, Okay, lady.
Yeah. But he says he can't because it's Hell Week and the brothers depend on him. Andy is upset because his roommate is in the frat and he didn't get picked.
Because he's a legacy.
His dad was in the frat and he didn't
get picked.
His dad was in the frat and he didn't get picked to be in the frat. When his roommate leaves, he starts talking to his clown figures.
Yeah, this guy is obsessed with clowns. He has a crazy clown figure, and he says clowns are. He has a shirt that says clowns are a bit kooky, or something like that. Yeah. And yeah, he's a bit of a clown obsessed person.
He's a kook.
Yeah.
The dean talks to the president of Zeta Alpha Rho. So they present the dean with Polaroids and video of him and cheerleaders who he has been he's been giving them some, let's say, after school guidance.
Yes. And you know who the dean sort of reminds me of? Remember Ross Perot? He sort of has the big ears like Ross Perot did.
And he says, well, I'll deny it. So they just leave. And they leave so he can just think about the situation. The two top frat house brothers go to the library. And they are very nervous.
Yeah, well, it was sort of like leading up there like, it's okay, man. You could do this. Everybody does it at least once. It's okay. You can do this.
Coming to the library, does that make us dorks? Well, Sarah follows them to the library and is so enraged that they talk about her. And he talks about not really being into her. And his friend says he thinks she is not so great. They just deal with her for him.
Well, she's sort of
Andy has a hard time because he is a legacy. And it is Hell Night, and he is not even a pledge. He talks to his clown figures, and he tells them he can make them all pay. Johnny Brookland has escaped the mental hospital, and he is on his way to the island. So he can make them all pay.
That was on the radio. That was said on the radio. They were like,
yeah.
Johnny Brookland's free, and we're afraid that he's going to return to the last place he was, or whatever.
The dean has had another bad headache, but he is out of pills. He has been hearing his mother's voice, and he can't make her stop talking to him. He says, "You are right, Mother. I will make them pay. Mother, like the others." Sarah decides she's going to try and get Tommy away from his frat brothers and is going to plan big plans for them. The frat brothers meet at the Sky Bridge and they have the task of staying all night on the island and staying alive. Why do I have to do that?
Because I think I do it. I do it a lot.
It's all your fault.
It really is.
So they lock them on the island.
Oh, okay, so they're all going through like this this covered.
It's a sky bridge.
Yeah,
a walking bridge.
A walking bridge, and they're like, "It'd be awesome if somebody was filming this, and you know, it's like a chase scene." I'm like, foreshadowing, you know, like. And
so one of the frat brothers, I guess his uncle is a security guard, and he got the keys from him, and this is something they do every year. They gave them a list of pictures to take and Polaroid cameras, and they got them on the island, and they lock them in, and then the frat
brothers,
the pledges
yeah.
are like, well, you know, our frat brothers, they're going to sneak on the island and they're going to try to scare us, so...
And the frat brothers do exactly that. And they try to set up, like, ways to scare them.
Yeah. So they meet at the Sky Bridge, and they have the task of staying all night on the island and staying alive. So they lock them on the island, and they have a list of pictures they have to take. The guys basically goof off all day and take some pictures, but mostly just have fun. Later on that day, the leaders of the frat are gathering to go onto the island to start Hell Night. They're looking for Roger. Sam was the first one to get killed. He was looking for Roger when the group goes to the island. The gate is already open. So they go in and lock it behind them. The museum entrance, the performers have their fun messing with the frat boys. Johnny gets his revenge. Or is it Andy?
Or is it Sarah? Or is it... Sorry.
Someone in a clown costume with a big knife is stabbing people. Two of the older brothers get poisoned,
Yeah,
by a clown.
Because, no matter where you go, if you're part of fraternity, you always have red Solo cups on you. Always.
One of the frat brothers thought it was Roger, dressed as a clown, and allowed him to handcuff him and cuff a briefcase to his foot. The briefcase was ticking, and it went boom. The president of the frat and the others started finding the dead brothers and started realizing that things are not so good. Sarah shows up and says she wants to elope and is not going to leave without her boyfriend Tommy. Just as she's telling Tommy we are leaving now, the clown shows up and kills another frat brother while they are talking. The doctor at the mental hospital shows up, picks the lock at the gate so she can see if Johnny is the one she is thinking he came back to the scene of the crime. Okay, that didn't say what I wanted it to, but you got the basic gist. One of the guys gets stabbed as he was on his way to get in the shower with a naked girl.
That just happened to be living on that island.
Right. She was like a drift away.
Yeah. Wasn't she there because of, I forgot what the backstory was. Something like her mother was part of the performance, or...
Yeah.
Yeah.
Poor guy. He didn't want to die a virgin.
Well, okay, so this guy was going on about how he's always having sex with people. And, he was like, I just got done with the threesome last night.
Yeah.
And usually when you have... I've known these people who, when I was in school, who always go, I had the awesomest sex. They're usually not getting sexed.
A group of them were inside together, and the performers decided to help them. They told them to put on the costumes and do the show. You will be safe if you perform. They cannot harm you if you are part of the act. The doctor is still on the search for Johnny.
And none of them, this is another thing that sort of irritates me, none of them go, and why is that?
Right. No one decides to ask questions to the performers. They just go, okay, let's put on the outfits and sing the songs. She gets face to face with the clown. She falls and says, help, I have fallen. I can't get up.
Where's the beef?
She realizes it's not Johnny. He stabs her, most likely in order to keep her from alarming the others. The performers have gotten the others to perform for them in their place. Some of the frat find the doctor, and she says the clown is Felix. One of the frat brothers says he is a brother who was taken to the mental hospital 3 years ago because he did not get into medical school. He's on the warpath and killing anyone who is in his way. So the performers manage to convince 4 others to perform their show, and now they can rest in peace. So the 4 are now forced to perform ill fit the next full moon when they can find 4 more to possibly take their place.
So I guess people turn into Uncle Sam and have to perform 4th of July acts. It's a full moon. So are you aware, Sam? Yankee Doodle went to town.
I really hate that song now. Finally, someone thinks and has a phone and calls the cops. And they say they will send someone to check it out. Roger wakes up with a bad headache and goes onto the island. With his plastic knife, Roger realizes that it is not a joke when the clown comes up to him and then goes up to another frat brother and cuts his throat. The cops show up and see the clown dancing around with the knife in hand. The cops get the clown and find out the clown is the dean of the school. Come to find out, the dean is the father of Jack. And he gets a cheerleader pregnant, and his mother made him give his son up to the nuns.
In Kansas City.
So when Jack applied to the school, he knew Jack was his son. But he could not allow his son to be corrupted by such a bad group. So that is why he killed the bad eggs on Hell Night. But he did not kill Jack's friends. The frat decides to make Jack the new president. And in the end, his roommate Andy does get to join the frat as a straight brother.
What was it? It was the Token Straight Brother. That was his official title, the Token Straight Brother.
No one realizes that the 4 members are trapped and forced to perform. Johnny Brooklyn runs for re-election to Senate.
Well, no, he runs for senator. And then the credits proceed a little bit more, and then he runs for re-election for senator. So it proves that most of our senators are psycho killers, which is actually true. So,
and that is the end of this. Everything recycles, basically.
Well, yeah, it's basically a Scooby-Doo episode.
Yeah.
For an hour and 24 minutes.
Who's the clown?
I mean, all we're missing is a dog and a stoner.
No, there was a stoner. That was the.
Oh, well, we're just missing a dog. Yeah, so. Yeah, we're just missing a dog at this point.
We had a dean.
Well, the dean was the killer. So. Yeah. Yeah. So, what did you think?
It was okay.
It was fun. I think it's a fun.
I had a lot of twists and turns.
Yeah. Did you know this movie was filmed in Memphis? Mm-mm. Yeah. I actually give this a 4 out of 5. It's a fun romp of a movie, full of what and why. And the subplot around is interesting and doesn't take itself seriously. At no point in this movie does this movie take itself seriously.
Filming location, Mud Island, Memphis, Tennessee.
Yeah.
I didn't know there was an island in Memphis.
Okay. Neither did I. It's really just fun. It's just a fun movie. And, like I said, I really didn't see much of the homophobia that, the original description said. Mm-hmm. I mean, it was I felt it was, like, pretty acceptable. I mean, there may have been, like, one guy that was uncomfortable about it. I mean, I think they made jokes about it, but nothing like seriousness.
Mm-mm. Not that I could tell.
Okay, so what's your rating on it?
I'll probably give it a 3.
Okay.
I thought it was okay, but I didn't think it was anything
spectacular.
I thought it kind of dragged on a little bit, honestly.
I sort of did like the clown doing weird stuff. It was sort of fun.
It was pretty unpredictable, the clown.
Yeah. Like,
Just knowing that they was running around freaking people out was kind of funny.
so who is your favorite character?
I don't know, probably Andy.
Yeah, I was going to say Andy, the clown obsessed roommate, sort of made the movie in my opinion. I wish there was more Andy in this movie.
I'm a legacy.
Well, what did his dad do? His dad like killed.
His dad was the president.
No, but he like poisoned half the fraternity or something. Like
He went nuts.
he just went off the rockers. And he's like, oh, but my dad, but I'm still a legacy.
My dad was crazy, but I'm still the legacy.
Yeah, so
I don't think it particularly said, but was his dad, did it kind of hint to the fact that his dad was Johnny Brooklyn?
no, I think from what Johnny Brooklyn, if you watch the ads, was a pretty young guy. So, I mean, he would have been in his 30s. I think that's how old you have to be to run for Senate. It's like in your 30s. I know, like you have to be for president. I think you have to be like 32.
But he looked a lot older than that.
Yeah, but I feel like with the timeline of the movie, it was pretty recently when Johnny Brooklyn did what he did. I don't know. I mean, I wouldn't say it was directly his dad was Johnny Brooklyn. I think we were meant to believe that Johnny Brooklyn had way more of his hands in things that he didn't have his hands in. You know, like the lady was, you know, like the nurse was blaming Johnny Brooklyn for everything, and go find out it's not Johnny. It's the dean that just hates the fraternity. It reminds me of Scooby Doo. So it's like Scooby Doo meets Animal House, and you get this in the modern day. Yeah, get this movie. So, I also like that the fraternity, I guess initials was Zap.
Zap.
Zap. So, that's this movie. Yeah.
I think that's all.
We'll see you next time. Bye.